Want to get trustworthy information about the Ukraine war? Don't ever trust this guy right here. Meet one of the worst human beings on planet Earth. This scoundrel is retired U.S. General Ben Hodges. And I guarantee you that these Ukraine bros get a good amount of their information regarding the Ukraine war from this pathological liar. And it is because of him and people like him that are typified by their false and empty cheerleading of the Ukrainians that is leading to a modern European state's death and destruction. And it is because of men like this and their irrational hatred of Russia and their ability to lie so slickly and blatantly that over 1 million Ukrainians are dead.
Always a time in a conflict where one side might begin to give way when both sides are in trouble. I think that the Russians are at the edge of their capacity. I mean, there's not like millions more Russian troops waiting to come into the fight. They're down to probably, some estimates, 30% of their precision munitions. They've expended so many.
Well, that's funny, Mr. Retired General Ben Hodges, because it seems like Russia, every single weekend, every couple times a week, is setting new records for sending precision-guided munitions into Ukraine.
Russia launches a mass attack across Ukraine. Missiles screaming into cities. Swarms of Iranian-made Shahed drones lighting up the night sky. Explosions rocked multiple regions, including Kiev, Dnipro, Kharkiv, Sumy and Poltava. Ukrainian air defenses roared into action, but not all made it through. Ukraine claims Russia's latest aerial assault employed a combination of armed drones, cruise and hypersonic missiles, and fighter jets. Moscow used cruise missiles such as the 3M14 Caliber and hypersonic missiles like the Kh-47 M2 Kinzhal.
I mean, there's a report almost every week of Russian soldiers being executed by their chain of command or being beaten for not attacking vigorously enough or for attempted desertion.
The Irish Sun, November 11th, 2025. Ukraine hits desertion record, BBC. More soldiers have reportedly gone AWOL or deserted in October than in any single month since the conflict's escalation in 2022. More than 21,000 soldiers deserted and left Kiev's armed forces without leave last month, BBC Ukraine reported on Friday. This was the largest single monthly number of desertions reports in the past 4 years of the Ukraine conflict, the broadcaster said, citing the latest data from the Prosecutor General's office. According to former Ukrainian MP Igor Lukashenko, who now serves in the military, the actual number could be even higher. On Facebook on Friday, he wrote, 21,602 in October. This is a record. This is a very bad record. Adding, this is just official data. In reality, many AWOL or desertion cases are not registered. Ukrainian forces on the front lines are under enormous strain because a double, triple load falls on every soldier who hasn't fled. Lukashenko added, we have huge holes in our defense at the front because of this.
When you are in a position engaged in fighting under constant shelling, it's not seen as you have a big concussion, so you're not taken to a hospital. Even just staying under constant shelling results in gradually damaged mental state. You go crazy step by step. You're all the time under stress, huge stress, and you don't control yourself anymore.
Kiev has ramped up its forced draft campaign in recent months to compensate for its army's thinning ranks as Russian forces have pushed their advance. Emerging eyewitness videos have regularly shown Ukrainian press gangs ambushing and chasing military-aged men on the streets and wrestling them into vans, often brawling with the would-be conscripts and bystanders. The practice, now colloquially known as bussification, has sparked growing discontent across Ukraine. Get this, guys. This is the most rich of all. Last month, Nikita Putraev, the head of the Ukrainian Parliamentary Committee on Humanitarian and Information Policy, claimed that such videos were either fake or made using AI. Earlier in October, Ukrainian conscription authorities urged citizens to stop filming and sharing videos of press gangs violently detaining prospective recruits.
I can envision a situation where a 1917-like scenario happens, but I've been told so many times by people who really do know Russia, like you don't appreciate their willingness and ability to endure privation. Now it could be because they don't have it very. I mean, their start point is so low that it's not quite the same as if you ask Londoners or people from Washington to endure privation. It's hard to imagine that they're going to keep doing this endlessly. I think that the Russian side is in so much trouble right now. I don't know how Putin sleeps at night. You can't trust anybody around him. And in that famous Hemingway novel that The Sun Also Rises, where they ask one of the characters, how did you go bankrupt? And the guy responds, slowly and then suddenly. And I think that's what's going to happen. I know I've been predicting this for some time about Russia. I still believe it's going to happen. Enough training, and they have built up the logistics. And I think we're going to see an attack that will be very professional, very effective. And its purpose will be to, I believe, isolate Crimea and set the conditions for the eventual liberation of Crimea later this year.
Later this year. Just quickly before we go, I'd like to pick up on what you just said there, General Hodges, because you have, in general, been very optimistic about Ukraine's ability to repel the Russian invasion and even march on Crimea.
She was incredulous that he actually said that.
Earlier, a couple of months ago, you said that you expected that to happen by summer. Do you stand by that?
She's given this old fool just enough rope to hang himself with.
Yeah, by the end of August, Ukraine will have been able to liberate Crimea.
It was pretty ballsy to make a prediction like that because of the gigantic chance of you falling on your fucking face and looking like a fucking fool. Because how did that big summer of 2023 Ukrainian counteroffensive, how did that go? How do you guys think it went?
Canadian journalist Neil Howard went to Ukraine, and this is what he observed. Ukraine's offensive has been tough going. A month into the campaign, only a handful of villages have been liberated. Helicopters in particular are a challenge, but on the southern front line, spirits are high. Along the Zaporozhye front, Ukraine is attacking along three main sectors. On the west side near the villages of Zharebyanki and Patykhepki, the Ukrainians got a 3-kilometer gain and 2 villages. At this moment, the Ukrainian attacks are breaking their teeth along this set of fortifications north of Zharebyanki. And these are just outposts, not even the main line of defense. Then we have the infamous Mala Tokmachka and Robotine axis, with the Bradley/Leopard 2 parking lot that went viral, plus 3 kilometers there as well. And they're just about to reach the first Russian line of defense centered on Robotine. Just the tip though. Just the tip. And lastly, we have the Vremyevsky salient, where Ukraine has had the most success as of now with a 6-kilometer push. But the main question is, at what cost? In total, 6 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles and an IMR-2 engineering vehicle were abandoned. Oryx reported 27 M2A2 Bradley ODS SA destroyed or damaged. And like the journalist from Forbes, David Axe, said, equally good chance there are M2 losses that no outside observer have documented. And what about manpower losses? Russian reports talk about 13 to 16,000 Ukrainian casualties, KIA or wounded, in the past 30 days of operations.
Before we start with a deep dive into the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the expectations were high from the offensive. The idea was that especially the equipment which was delivered from the West, so modern main battle tanks like the Leopard or the Challenger, or infantry fighting vehicles like the CV-90 or the Bradley or the Marder will make the difference. But the first hours showed that the Russian defense line were well prepared, and these were the pictures we actually saw in the beginning of the Ukrainian operation. And it was General Zaluzhny, the commander of the Ukrainian forces, who stopped pretty much the operations because of the fact that the losses were so high.
And here we have actual footage of the failed counteroffensive. So we see that Ben Hodges has been wrong in every single prediction. He said 1 month into the war that Russia was down to 30% of its precision-guided munitions, meaning missiles and rockets and stuff. 30% 1 month into the war. He said Russia was soon to collapse. He even said that Ukraine would be in Crimea by the end of the summer of 2023. Do you see that, guys? Do you see how wrong he is about that? He castigates the Russian military for desertion when Ukraine just recorded over 22,000 documented cases of desertion for the month of October of 2025. They've been prophesying that the end of Russia is nigh, that Russia is going to collapse. For how long? And so therefore, we need to just keep throwing money into this black hole. We need to just keep giving Ukraine every single weapon that it wants or even requests, just so we can kill some more Russians. Do you see? And then we're going to do it to the last Ukrainian on top of that. And these propagandists have been so relentless in their message. So now we have a situation where you have millions upon millions of Americans and Europeans who are not only advocating that we continue to provide Ukraine with more weaponry, but that we increase the weapons shipments, that we give Ukraine whatever they want and let them do whatever they want. Some of these psychos even want to put boots on the ground or try to establish no-fly zones, which would essentially make NATO or the United States, who they, of course, want to back them up on this little adventure, active participants in a shooting hot war with Russia. Think about that for a second. These filthy, disgraced liars like Ben Hodges and Jake Bro and Dennis Dadydov or whatever the hell that guy's name is. These people are shameless propagandists, and I'm sure they've been receiving a lot of money. And then what will these same people say when these weapon systems don't work? What will these people say when the Ukrainians fail to hold ground because they're trying to hold it with drones and not infantry? You can't hold ground with technology. You need infantry. You need riflemen. You need frontline tactical assault groups of soldiers. You're not going to win the war with drones and surveillance and this and that. You have to have men at the front willing to put their lives on the line. And Ukraine is in no position with their desertion crisis and their incredibly high death count. So at this point, it's just incredibly cruel to keep cheerleading this on. You're not helping the Ukrainians. You're killing the Ukrainian nation. You are not pro-Ukrainian. You are just anti-Russian. I guess my message to the Ukraine bros out there listening to this is your rationale, your logic is that you want to potentially start World War III to force Eastern Ukraine and Crimea, which are predominantly Russian, to be part of Ukraine. So basically, you want to start World War III. You want millions of people to potentially die just so that you can force some Russians to be part of Ukraine.